Why you forget everything, the truth. Have you ever fallen into this feeling? Yesterday you sat down to study for almost 2 hours, carefully underlined every sentence, repeated every idea, told yourself, this time I'm going to remember it for real. But the next morning, when you opened the same lesson again, your mind felt completely empty, as if you had never seen it before. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly forgot why you came in? Have you ever stood in front of the refrigerator and had no idea what you were looking for? Have you ever been talking normally, telling a story smoothly, and suddenly, when you needed to mention someone's name, your mind went completely blank, even though you remember their face clearly, their voice clearly, but their name disappears like it never existed? Have you ever studied English, watched a video, listened to a podcast, understood everything while listening, but just 5 minutes later, when someone asked, "What new words did you learn?" you couldn't recall a single word? Have you ever felt like your brain is a goldfish brain, remembering some random things but forgetting everything important? Have you ever tried so hard to remember something, only to feel it slipping away the more you try? Have you ever wondered whether your memory is getting worse, whether something is wrong with your brain, or whether you're simply not smart enough? If you have fallen into even one of those situations, if you felt helpless because your memory keeps failing you, if you felt frustrated because you keep forgetting important things while remembering things you don't need, then this video exactly is for you. You're not alone. Almost everyone experiences this, especially people learning English. People who want to get better, who want to retain more, who want to improve themselves every single day. You're trying, but you don't understand why your memory doesn't cooperate with you. And the sad truth is this: it's not because you're not intelligent. It's not because your brain is weak. It's not because you were born with a bad memory. No, the real reason is that no one ever taught you how your brain actually works. You never learned why you forget. You never learned the rules that control your memory. You've been trying to learn using a completely wrong system, an outdated system that doesn't match the way your brain naturally functions. You forget not because your memory is weak, but because you've never learned how to move information into long-term memory. There's nothing wrong with your intelligence. You're simply using the wrong operating system. Think about it. Do you remember how irritated you felt when you forgot what you needed to do? Or when you forgot an appointment? Or when you forgot the story you were telling? Or when you forgot the content of something you just studied? Or when you forgot the English words you just heard? Or when you forgot something you were absolutely sure you would remember? You feel like you're not in control of your own mind. You want to remember, but your brain doesn't listen. You want to hold on to information, but it flows out like water slipping through your hands. And the more you try to grab it, the faster it disappears. The scariest part is when you start doubting yourself, doubting your intelligence, doubting your ability to learn, doubting your future. But today, I want to tell you a truth almost no one else tells you. You do not have a bad memory. You are not weak. You are not a goldfish. You just don't know the truth behind why you forget everything. And in this video, I'm going to take you deep into your mind. I'm going to explain, in a simple, emotional, story-driven way, exactly what happens inside your brain when you forget. And today, I'm not just going to help you understand why you forget. I'm going to help you learn how to remember. Remember longer. Remember deeper. Remember clearly. Remember like someone with super memory. And I say this with absolute certainty. You don't have a bad memory. You have the wrong system. And today, we're going to rebuild that system from the ground up. Have you ever felt like you're constantly starting over? You learn English vocabulary. You remember it clearly today. You repeat it. You write it down. You feel confident. And then, just a few days later, that same word suddenly disappears from your mind as if it was never there? You read a book because you want to grow. You highlight your favorite quotes. You feel inspired while reading. But 1 week later, someone asks you, "What was that book about?" And you can't give even one complete answer. You study for an exam. You cram information into your head. You memorize for hours. But the moment you walk into the exam room, your mind turns completely blank. Have you ever realized you forgot what you needed to do, even though you'd been thinking about it all morning? Have you ever felt like you're trying so hard, yet your results never match your effort? And that feeling, that sinking feeling of, "Why can't I remember anything? What's wrong with me?" begins to grow inside you. If you see yourself in those questions, then you are exactly the person this video is made for. Because the truth is, millions of people struggle with their memory every single day. People who want to study better, communicate in English better, work more effectively, focus more deeply, and become the best version of themselves. They want to remember, but their brain doesn't cooperate. They forget too fast. They remember too little. They feel like they always have to work harder than everyone else just to keep up. But here's the truth. Almost nobody ever tells you. The problem is not their memory. The problem is the way they learn, the way they receive information, the way they process information. Since childhood, you were taught to study hard, but no one taught you how to study effectively. You were given assignments, but no one taught you how to use your brain the right way. You were asked to memorize, but no one explained how memory actually works. And so, as you grow up, as you enter school, university, work, learning English, reading books, trying to improve your life, you carry with you a broken learning system. A system you've used for years, or even decades. A system that makes you remember quickly and forget just as quickly. A system that overloads your mind, prevents long-term memory, and makes you believe there's something wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. The only thing wrong is the system. And this video is going to help you fix that. Because when you finally understand why you forget, you will finally understand how to remember. When you understand why your brain refuses to store information, you will finally know how to make it store information. When you understand how memory works, you will learn English faster, read more effectively, concentrate more deeply, and think more clearly. And most importantly, you will finally feel like you are in control of your own mind again. No more feeling defeated when you forget. No more doubting yourself. No more blaming yourself for something that is not your fault. In this video, you will discover the 12 laws of memory, the truth about attention, the truth about images, the truth about emotions, the truth about stories, the truth about spaced repetition, the truth about active recall, the truth about mind palace, and the hidden truth about information overload. Something almost everyone is suffering from without realizing it. And every principle is explained with stories, examples, emotions, and images. So you won't just understand them, you will feel them. I want you to hear these stories and say, "That's me. That's exactly me." Because the moment you recognize yourself in these stories, that's the moment your transformation begins. And I want you to remember something important. You are not weak. You are not slow. You are not less intelligent than others. Your brain is far more powerful than you think. You have simply never been shown how to use it the right way. But if you stay with this video until the end, everything will change. Your memory will change. The way you learn will change. The way you understand yourself will change. So get ready. Because the journey begins right now. The journey to discover the truth behind why you forget everything. Chapter 2. The real reason you forget. Not what you think. Most people go through life believing there is something wrong with their brain. They think they were born with a weak memory, that they're somehow slow, or that their mind isn't as sharp as everyone else's. Maybe you've thought the same about yourself. Maybe you've looked at other people and wondered, why can they remember everything and I forget so easily? Why does their brain work better than mine? But the truth is completely different from what you think. Your brain is not weak. Your memory is not broken. Your intelligence is not limited. The real problem isn't your brain. It's your system. You've been using the wrong approach to memory your entire life, and no one ever corrected it. No one ever told you how memory truly works. No one ever taught you the mechanics, the structure, the science of remembering. And because of that, you assumed something was wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. Let me show you what's really happening. Think about this. How many times have you studied for hours, right before an exam? You sat there with your books open, your notes spread around you, your highlighter in hand. You read and reread the same paragraph until the words blurred on the page. You forced yourself to keep going even when your brain felt tired. You pushed, you crammed, you memorized as much as you could in one night. And maybe, that night, you felt okay. You felt like you understood everything. You felt like you had it all under control. You felt like you were ready. But then the next morning, you walked into the exam room, sat down, looked at the first question, and your mind went completely blank. Everything you studied, gone. Everything you repeated, gone. Everything you highlighted, gone. It felt as if someone had reached inside your head during the night and deleted everything. And you panicked. You froze. You blamed yourself. Why didn't I remember? Why am I so bad at this? Why do I forget everything? But here's the truth. You didn't forget because your brain is weak. You forgot because you were only using short-term memory, a temporary storage space that your brain wipes clean very quickly. Short-term memory is like writing something on a foggy window. You can see it for a moment, but the next time you breathe, it disappears. Long-term memory, the memory you want, is more like carving something into stone. It stays. It lasts. It doesn't disappear overnight. And the key difference between the two is not intelligence, but process. Most people only use the short-term process. They cram. They jam information into their brain, and they hope it stays. But the brain doesn't work that way. It needs time. It needs repetition. It needs emotion. It needs structure. It needs the right system. Without the right system, almost everything you study disappears. And this is why people think their memory is broken. It's not broken. It's just untrained. Let me give you an example that might feel painfully familiar. Imagine a student. Let's call her Anna. Anna has an exam tomorrow. She hasn't studied enough, so she sits down and decides to study for 5 straight hours. She forces herself to read everything. She makes neat notes. She highlights important phrases. She rereads the same material again and again until she feels confident. She goes to sleep thinking, yes, I'm ready now. But the next day, she sits down at her desk, picks up her pen, and her mind turns into a blank sheet of paper. She stares at the questions. They look familiar, but she can't recall the answers. She tries to pull the information out of her brain, but nothing comes. Her chest tightens. She feels embarrassed. She feels stupid. She thinks, what's wrong with me? I studied so hard. But the truth is, nothing is wrong with her. She didn't store anything in long-term storage. She only loaded it into short-term memory. And short-term memory fades quickly, sometimes in hours, sometimes overnight, sometimes even within minutes. That's why she forgot. And that's why you forget too. Not because you're not smart, not because your brain is weak, but because you're using the wrong system. Think about the English phrases you hear all the time. I'm so forgetful. I have a terrible memory. My brain doesn't work like other people's. You say these things because you don't know the truth. That your brain is perfectly capable of storing enormous amounts of information if you know how to use it. But you've been taught the wrong habits. You've been taught to cram. You've been taught to memorize without understanding how memory works. And that's why you keep forgetting. So let's learn the phrase that truly matters: short-term memory and long-term storage. Your goal is not to stuff information anywhere. Your goal is to move it from short-term memory into long-term storage. And once you learn how to do that, your entire life will change. You will stop forgetting. You will recall information faster. You will remember English vocabulary effortlessly. You will study smarter, not harder. So now, let's go deeper. Let me show you exactly why your brain behaves this way and how to fix it. Let's dig even deeper into the truth behind why you forget. Because this is the part no one ever explains, yet it changes everything. Imagine your brain like a massive library. Not a small library with a few shelves. No. Imagine a gigantic, endless library stretching further than your eyes can see. This library represents your memory. Every piece of information you learn becomes a book placed on one of the shelves. A name, a date, a new English word, a lesson from school, a story someone tells you. Each one is a book. Now here's the problem. Most people throw their books into this library without labeling them, without putting them on the right shelves, without organizing anything. They simply toss the books in and walk away. So what happens? The books get lost. You try to find them later, but they're buried under chaos. And then you say, "I forgot." But the book is still in the library. It just wasn't placed correctly. That's how your memory works. Most people don't place information in long-term storage. They don't label it. They don't revisit it. They don't use it. So it gets lost. Not gone, just lost. And when you try to recall it, you can't find it. And instead of blaming the system, you blame yourself. You believe you're the problem. But let me tell you something. Your brain is the most powerful library on Earth. It holds more data than any computer you will ever own. But even the best library needs an organized system. Without a system, everything falls apart. Now let me show you what actually happens inside your mind when you study the way you've always studied. Picture a student, maybe it's you, maybe it's someone you know, studying vocabulary for an English test. They write the word, repeat the word, read the definition, maybe even make a sentence. But they only do it once, one time. And then they expect their brain to remember it forever. But your brain doesn't work like that. One exposure is not enough. One repetition is not enough. One reading is not enough. When you learn something only once, you're using short-term memory, a tiny space designed to hold information for minutes or hours, not days or weeks. And when short-term memory fills up, the brain clears it out to make space for new information. That's why you forget. Not because your brain is weak, but because your brain is efficient. It removes what it thinks you don't need. And how does your brain decide what to keep? By attention, by repetition, by emotion, by meaning. If you don't give your brain these signals, it assumes the information is unimportant. And when you sleep, it deletes it. This is why you forget what you study the night before an exam. This is why you forget English words after only hearing them once. This is why you forget why you walked into a room. Your brain is constantly filtering, constantly deleting, constantly cleaning, not to harm you, but to protect you. If your brain tried to remember everything, you would go insane. So it saves only what matters. And here's the most important part. Your brain does not decide what matters. You do. you choose what stays. You choose what becomes long-term memory. And right now, without realizing it, you've been telling your brain the wrong things. When you study without attention, your brain says, "Oh, they weren't paying attention." Delete. When you study without repetition, your brain says, "They saw this only once." Delete. When you study without emotion, your brain says, "This didn't matter." Delete. When you cram without understanding, your brain says, "Temporary data." Delete. And you walk around feeling like there's something wrong with you, when in reality, your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is following the signals you give it. If you give it the wrong signals, it produces the wrong results. But if you give it the right signals, it becomes unstoppable. And that is why I want you to learn these phrases deeply. Forget, recall, short-term memory, long-term storage. These are not just English phrases. They are the foundation of understanding your mind. Once you see how they work, the entire world of learning opens up for you. You will no longer panic when you forget. You will no longer doubt yourself. You will no longer feel broken. Because you will finally understand. Your memory is not the problem. Your method is. And the moment you change the method, everything changes. Your confidence grows. Your learning accelerates. Your English improves. Your life improves. And this is the beginning of your transformation. Now that you understand the real reason you forget, we're ready to move to the next step, the doorway to building a powerful, reliable memory that works whenever you need it. Chapter 3. The Truth About Attention. You forget because you never really noticed. There is a truth about memory that almost nobody talks about, yet it explains more than half of all the forgetting in your life. It explains why you forget names, why you forget appointments, why you forget information, why you forget vocabulary, why you forget what you just read, and even why you forget what you walked into a room to get. The truth is simple but powerful. You forget things not because you have a bad memory, but because you never truly noticed them in the first place. Forgetting is not the result of a weak brain. Forgetting is the result of weak attention. Attention is the gatekeeper of memory. Nothing enters your long-term memory unless it passes through the door of attention. If you don't notice something deeply, your brain doesn't save it. It treats it as background noise. It deletes it, ignores it, lets it fall through the cracks without hesitation. And this is exactly why you forget so much. Because in reality, you never truly paid attention in the first place. Think about how many times this has happened to you. You meet someone new. They shake your hand. They smile. They introduce themselves. "Hi, I'm Jason." You smile back. You say, "Nice to meet you." You talk for a few minutes. 5 minutes later, someone asks you, "Hey, what was his name?" And your mind goes blank. You panic. You think, "Why can't I remember it? Am I stupid?" But the truth is, you never actually registered the name. You heard it, but you didn't notice it. The sound of the name entered your ears but never reached your mind. Because while he was speaking, while he was saying, "I'm Jason," you were probably thinking about what to say next, or whether your hair looked okay, or how to respond politely. You weren't focused on the name. And because you weren't focused, your memory never saved it. This is the truth. You can't remember what you never paid attention to. Your brain is receiving millions of signals every day: sounds, colors, movements, words, notifications, vibrations, messages, conversations, images, ads, noise, noise, more noise. If your brain tried to save everything, you would be overwhelmed. So it does something smart. It filters. It asks one question: is this important? And the way your brain decides what's important is simple. It follows your attention. If you focus on something, your brain says, save this. If you don't, your brain says, throw it away. Your attention determines what stays and what disappears. And this is why most people forget so much, because modern life has destroyed their attention. Think about how many times you try to learn something, but your phone vibrates. You respond. You scroll. You check a message. You see a notification. Then you come back to your book, your lesson, your English video. But your mind is no longer fully present. You're reading, but you're not absorbing. You're listening, but you're not hearing. You're studying, but you're not noticing. And the brain cannot save what you do not notice. Let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates this truth. Imagine you're getting out of a taxi. You're tired. You're thinking about dinner. You're checking your phone. You're holding your bag. You're paying the driver. You're distracted. In your head, you're doing 10 things at once. You step out, close the door, and walk away. 5 minutes later, your eyes widen. You realize something terrifying. You left your bag in the car, your passport, your laptop, your wallet. You freeze. Your heart pounds. You try to remember the car's number plate, but your brain gives you nothing. Just silence. Just emptiness. Just blank space. Why? Because even though you saw the taxi, even though the car was right in front of you, you never actually looked. You glanced, but you didn't pay attention. You were physically present, but mentally somewhere else. The brain cannot save what you never really noticed. And here's the painful part. It's not your fault. The world around you is designed to steal your attention. Everything around you, apps, notifications, ads, social media, videos, sounds, is constantly fighting for a piece of your mind. Every beep, every buzz, every vibration is pulling your focus away. And the more distracted you are, the more you forget. Not because you're weak, not because you're slow, not because you're broken, but because your attention is fragmented. And fragmented attention equals fragmented memory. This is why you feel like you're forgetting more now than ever before. This is why you struggle to remember conversations. This is why you struggle to remember English vocabulary. This is why you struggle to remember instructions. This is why you struggle to remember your tasks. Because your brain is drowning in distractions, and without attention, nothing gets inside your memory. This is where your English vocabulary becomes extremely important. The words focus, attention, distracted, notice. These are not just English words. They describe the exact process happening inside your mind every single day. When you are distracted, you do not focus. When you do not focus, you do not notice. When you do not notice, you cannot remember. And once you understand this, you stop blaming your memory, and you start fixing your attention. Because the truth is this: memory doesn't begin with memorizing. Memory begins with noticing. And if you want to change your memory, you must first change your attention. Let's go even deeper into this truth, because once you fully understand the power of attention, everything about your memory and your learning will change forever. Attention is not just something you use. Attention is the foundation of everything your brain decides to keep. Without attention, learning collapses. Without attention, memory dies. Without attention, information evaporates. You forget because your attention was never there in the first place. Think about how many times you've said, "I studied this already. Why don't I remember?" Or, "I read this chapter. Why does it feel new?" Or, I learned this English word yesterday. Why can't I recall it today? The answer is not that you didn't study hard enough. The answer is that you didn't study with attention. You were half connected, half listening, half reading, half focused, and half attention equals zero memory. Let me ask you something. How many times have you read a page in a book, reached the end of the page, and then realized you have no idea what you just read? Your eyes moved across the lines. Your brain recognized the letters. But mentally, you weren't there. You were thinking about something else. So you didn't absorb anything. Why? Because you didn't notice the words. You didn't connect. You didn't engage. You didn't give the brain the signal that said, "This matters, save this." And so, the brain didn't. This is the same reason you forget English words so fast. You think hearing a word once is enough. You think reading a definition once is enough. But your attention isn't truly locked in. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're distracted. Maybe you're listening while scrolling. Maybe you're hearing the lesson but thinking about something else. And so your brain never receives the signal to save the word. The brain is not a sponge. It does not absorb automatically. The brain is a filter. It only keeps what your attention highlights. If your attention doesn't highlight it, the information disappears. And now let me tell you something most people never realize. Your brain is not forgetting to be cruel to you. Your brain is forgetting because it thinks it is helping you. Every day, your brain receives more information than it can handle. So it has to make decisions. It has to choose what stays and what goes. Imagine your brain saying, "They didn't look at this carefully. They didn't repeat it. They didn't care about it. It must not be important." Delete. 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 The brain deletes anything that doesn't get your full attention. This is not failure. This is efficiency. But here's the life-changing part. You can control what your brain keeps. You can control what your brain deletes. You can control what your brain remembers. And that control starts with a rule so simple, so obvious, yet so ignored. Stop. Pay attention. Notice. Just 5 seconds of real attention, just 5 seconds, can be the difference between remembering something for life and forgetting it forever. Imagine if you, before leaving the taxi, paused for 1 second, looked at the car, noticed the license plate, said it out loud. 1 second. Just one. That 1 second could have saved your bag, your time, your panic. Imagine if, when someone tells you their name, you pause, look into their face, repeat the name inside your mind, connect it to something memorable. Just a few seconds, and you would never forget their name. Imagine if, when learning an English word, you didn't just listen passively but stopped, repeated it, imagined it, connected it with emotion. Just a moment of true attention, and that word would stick. This is the power of attention. Attention transforms information into memory. Attention is the bridge between learning and remembering. Without attention, nothing crosses that bridge. With attention, everything does. And this is why I want you to internalize these 4 words. Focus, attention, distracted, notice. These aren't just vocabulary items. They are the 4 forces that will determine how good your memory becomes. When you are distracted, your memory shuts down. When you focus, your memory awakens. When you don't notice, information dies. When you notice deeply, information lives. Your memory is not the problem. Your attention is. Fix your attention, and your memory transforms. Fix your attention, and learning becomes easier. Fix your attention, and English becomes natural. Fix your attention, and your life becomes sharper, clearer, stronger. This is the truth about attention. And now that you understand it, we can move forward into the next chapter, the chapter that reveals how your brain actually remembers best, through pictures, not words. Chapter 4. Your brain thinks in pictures. There is a truth about your brain that will completely change the way you learn, the way you remember, the way you study, the way you absorb English, and even the way you see the world. It is simple, powerful, and impossible to ignore once you understand it. Here it is. Your brain does not think in words. Your brain thinks in pictures. And this one truth explains why you forget so much. It explains why reading a chapter doesn't mean you understand it. It explains why hearing a new English word doesn't mean you will remember it. It explains why someone tells you their name and you forget it minutes later. It explains why lists slip out of your memory like sand through your fingers. It explains why you remember some things for years, effortlessly, while other things disappear instantly. You forget because you are trying to memorize words. But your brain only remembers images. You are feeding your brain text, but your brain only digests pictures. Let's go deeper. Imagine I say the word elephant. What appears in your mind? Do you see the letters ELEPHANT floating in the air? Of course not. You see a huge gray animal. You see its long trunk. You see its ears flapping. You see its size, its shape, its movement. Your brain instantly creates a picture. When I say mountain, you don't see the letters MOUNTAIN. You see a tall peak, snow on the top, clouds around it. When I say ocean, you don't see the word. You see waves, maybe blue water, maybe sunlight on the surface. Your brain is a visual machine. Your brain is an image generator. And your memory follows images, not words. But most people try to learn using only words. Textbooks full of words, notes full of words, lists full of words, English vocabulary full of words. And that's why they forget. Because words are abstract. Words are flat. Words are cold. Words have no shape, no color, no movement, no emotion. And your brain doesn't know what to do with things that have no life. But images are alive. Images have emotion. Images have color. Images have movement. Images have story. And the brain loves stories. That is why you can remember a movie you watched 10 years ago, but can't remember the paragraph you read 10 minutes ago. That is why you remember a childhood moment forever, but forget what you studied yesterday. That is why you can replay a scene, a smell, a feeling, a face, like it happened today, while the information you actually want to remember disappears instantly. Not because the information was too hard, not because your brain is weak, but because you never turned it into images. You never gave your brain a picture to hold on to. And the brain does not hold words. It holds pictures. Let me tell you a story that shows this perfectly. Imagine you meet a girl named Lily. You shake her hand and she says, "Hi, I'm Lily." You smile and introduce yourself. But inside, your brain is already forgetting. Why? Because the name Lily is just a sound with no picture attached, a sound with no emotion behind it, a sound your brain doesn't know how to store. But imagine this instead. The moment she says, "I'm Lily," you picture her hair made of white lilies. Or you imagine her holding a bouquet of lilies behind her back. Or you imagine her standing in a field of lilies. Your brain suddenly wakes up. Oh, that's interesting. Let's save that. The name becomes a picture. The picture becomes a memory. And the memory stays. This is the secret memory champions use. This is why they can remember hundreds of words, numbers, names, faces, but they don't memorize anything. They visualize everything. They transform abstract information into imagery. They don't store text, they store movies. And now, you're going to learn to do the same. Because once you know how to visualize, you will never learn the same way again. And you will never forget the same way again. Let me show you how powerful this really is. Let's say I give you 5 words to memorize. Milk, eggs, book, shoes, cat. If you try to memorize the list normally, your brain will forget most of it within minutes. It's just text. It's just words. But if you transform those words into a picture, just one picture, your brain will remember all of them instantly. Watch this. Imagine a giant carton of milk sitting in a chair, reading a book. It's wearing a pair of shoes too big for its legs. A cat wearing tiny glasses is standing on top of the milk carton, taking notes. And eggs are falling from the sky like snowflakes. Do you see it? Do you feel it? Do you think that, if I ask you 1 hour from now, what were the 5 words? You will remember? Of course you will. Because the brain remembers the funny, the strange, the exaggerated, the emotional, the visual. That is why humor helps memory. That is why surprise helps memory. That is why emotion helps memory. And that is why imagery helps memory more than anything else. Let's go even deeper. Think about your strongest memories. Childhood. Your first day of school. A moment when you cried. A moment when you laughed so hard you couldn't breathe. A moment when someone broke your heart. A moment when you felt proud. A moment when you felt ashamed. These memories are not sentences in your head. They are pictures. They are scenes. They are mini-movies. You don't remember the words that were said. You remember the images of the moment. You don't remember the details. You remember the feelings. And that's exactly why they stay. Memory isn't text. Memory is cinema. And this is where learning English becomes so much easier once you understand it. Because every English word you try to memorize will become 10 times easier if you turn it into a picture. For example, the word volcano. If you memorize it as volcano, you might forget it. But if you imagine a giant birthday cake erupting with hot chocolate lava, your brain goes, wow, that's fun. Let's save it. The word stays, or the word whisper. Instead of just reading the definition, imagine someone leaning in slowly to whisper a secret into your ear. You can almost feel their breath. That image saves the word. Or the word gravity. Imagine yourself floating in space, trying to grab a floating apple. But the moment you touch it, gravity pulls it straight down. Instantly unforgettable. This is how real memory works. Not through repetition, but through imagery. Not through force, but through creativity. Not through pressure, but through imagination. And anyone can do it. You don't need a high IQ. You don't need special talent. You just need to understand how your brain works. And your brain works visually. This is why children remember so well. They don't think in definitions. They think in pictures. When a child hears the word lion, they imagine a lion. They see it roar. They see its mane. They see the danger. They see the excitement. We lose this ability as we get older, not because our brain gets worse, but because our education system forces us into text-only learning. But text-only learning is memory suicide. You're fighting your own brain instead of working with it. And this is why everything changes today. This chapter is not just information. It is a transformation. It's a new way of learning, a new way of remembering, a new way of experiencing information. And the moment you begin applying it, even for a few minutes, you will feel the difference. You will feel your brain wake up. You will feel information stick. You will feel clarity. You will feel confidence. You will feel powerful. Because now, you're finally giving your brain what it was designed to receive. Let me show you the ultimate truth. Memory is not about trying harder. Memory is about creating images. And when you create images, your brain does the rest. It stores them automatically. It recalls them effortlessly. And it keeps them for life. So from now on, don't just read. Don't just listen. Don't just repeat. See, visualize, imagine, create pictures in your mind. Because when you turn information into images, you turn memory into power. And when you turn memory into power, you turn learning into mastery. Chapter 5. You can't remember lists, but you never forget stories. There is a beautiful truth about your memory that almost nobody teaches you, yet it explains one of the biggest mysteries of your mind. Why you forget so many things you try to remember, and why you remember so many things you never tried to remember at all. You forget lists, facts, steps, instructions, vocabulary, tasks, but you never forget stories. You never forget the stories people tell you. You never forget the stories you lived. You never forget the scenes that touched your heart. You never forget the moments that made you laugh, cry, or change. The truth is this: your brain is not built for lists. Your brain is built for stories. Human memory is not a storage of random information. Human memory is a cinema, a timeline, a world of characters and events, a narrative. And unless information becomes part of a story, your brain doesn't know where to put it. It floats. It drifts. It gets lost. This is why you can memorize a list of 10 items and forget half of them within 20 minutes. Yet you can remember a movie you watched 10 years ago, scene by scene. This is why you forget a list of English vocabulary but remember the entire plot of your favorite childhood cartoon. This is why you forget dates and numbers, but remember the stories your grandparents told you. Stories are the natural language of the brain. Stories activate emotions. Stories create structure. Stories connect meaning. And stories give your brain hooks, anchors, that lists can never compete with. Let me show you how powerful this really is. Imagine someone says to you, "Here's a list of words. Remember them. Apple, horse, jacket, candle, ice cream, cloud, socks, chair, tree, monkey." Try to memorize it as a list. Try as hard as you want. What happens? Your brain feels heavy. You repeat the words. You try to hold them. But within minutes, they begin to slip away. You remember the first few, maybe the last few, but the middle disappears. That's because lists have no meaning, no structure, no connection, no emotion. Your brain doesn't know where to store them. They are just floating concepts. But now, let me show you something magic. Let me turn the exact same list into a story. Ready? Imagine this. A giant apple suddenly falls from the sky and hits a horse right on the head. Startled, the horse screams, runs into a store, and steals a jacket from the rack. But it's dark inside the store, so the horse lights a candle to look around. The heat from the candle melts a giant ice cream cone sitting on the counter. The ice cream explodes into a cloud that rains socks across the room. One sock hits a chair so hard that the chair grows into a tall tree. And from the top of the tree, a laughing monkey swings down and gives you a thumbs up. Now close your eyes and just replay that story for 2 seconds. Suddenly, you remember every word. Easily. In order. Without effort. Why? Because now the information isn't a list. It's a movie. A crazy movie. A funny movie. An emotional movie. And your brain loves it. This is exactly how memory champions memorize hundreds of random words, numbers, and sequences. They don't memorize anything. They create stories. They transform boring information into unforgettable imagery. And the brain never loses what the heart finds interesting. This is the difference between forgetting and remembering. Lists fight your brain. Stories